Hi, welcome. My name is Tammy. I'm the founder and spiritual director of the Magdalene Center for Healing and Holistic Wellness. And I am here today to share a little bit about my personal story, just to give you a little bit of background, a little bit about me, and a little bit about how and why I've decided to finally put out into the world this and in the center and how I got here. It's actually fun to make a video like this because it helps me to even hear myself telling this story, which gives me my own sense of awe, which is one of the things that I know happens with this work and that I've shared in other videos and in other places, that it's a joy and a privilege for me to share it with you. And it's a joy and a privilege and an honor for me to be able to speak about Mother Mary, about the power of the Cosmic Mother, about her son, Yeshua, about the Magdalene, about the Holy Sophia, and to be able to speak out loud the gifts that they have given to me and to my life. You'll hear me say in other places, and it's on the website, that I consider myself to be a recovering Catholic. And and the center again is about, if you've listened to the other video about who it's for, etc. I call out recovering Catholics or people who are Christians, or just any and all spiritual seekers who are interested in Christ consciousness or have a relationship with Yeshua. And that it falls outside of doctrine and dogma and institutionalized religion. This is about a spiritual path that transforms you from the inside out. And I can say that so confidently because my path, my journey started in the church. When, I was born and raised, I was a cradle Catholic, right? I was born and raised in Catholicism. And I was very adamant about being a very good Catholic because my goal was to get to heaven. When I really reflected on my life, when I was able to do this, which took a long time, but when I was able to really reflect on my life, on my childhood, on many of the things that happened to me, I was able to see very clearly how every piece of my story prepared me to be able to sit here and be able to say that so confidently, because that was not the case for a very long time. I don't know how else to say it except to say that I was really afraid. I was afraid to be able to speak what I was experiencing. I was afraid of what people would think. I was afraid, and that made me feel sad because it was such a profound experience and a profound presence that has been with me and carried me through all of my life that I couldn't understand what I was so afraid of. And now I do. I do understand. So being born into Catholicism, you become there's ideas and thoughts that become ingrained in your psyche, and they directly impact how you see and exist in the world. And so, my experience with Catholicism, I don't think it matters what it is, right? Whatever you were born into directly forms, shapes, impacts how you see, exist, and show up in the world, right? And so, for me, there was a lot of unwiring that I had to do. And it was derived from a lot of the shame and guilt that I felt for thinking and feeling and wanting to experience things that the church told me was, that Catholicism told me was bad and wrong. And I couldn't make it make sense. And I also couldn't make sense how what I knew and was taught were the rules and, right, all of the doctrine and all of the dogma that goes around, right, what's believed to be true in what makes you a good human and what makes you, get that check box that you get to go to heaven versus go into this really terrible, scary, awful, horrifying place called hell, that you want to avoid at all costs because it's this internal, eternal damnation kind of thing, that forever and ever you're in this, state of suffering. It was terrifying. right? So there's so many parts of these things that just terrified me. And they were, I mean, literally I'd lay in bed thinking about Satan, right? Thinking about the devil and how all the things that I've done, that he was coming to get me because, and then we're also told that, right? Is that Satan is always looking to trick. I mean, there's just so many trick us or so many things that just screw with your head and your heart. And if you're really paying attention and you think, and I'm a thinker, so I would lay and just think about these things, right? But yet I had all these experiences in my life with a presence that was the exact opposite. That wasn't mean and scary. That wasn't telling me I was going to hell. That wasn't telling me, wasn't shaking their finger at me. It was the exact opposite. It was this all-encompassing love. A love of me, of who I was, where I was, and what was. And it was so simple and so beautiful and so peaceful and so profound that I couldn't make it make sense because they just didn't click. What I was being told was not what I experienced. And I experienced these things throughout my life. I had I had a challenging childhood overall. I wrote a book, by the way. I wrote a book called Your Time Is Now. And anyway, it's on my website. Check it out. The book was my first book. It's frankly, I think it was a little premature, but I also trust the timing of all things. And that book I wrote in 12 weeks. It just poured out of me. It's a story. I don't think I really did a lot of the inner work that it's needed to be able to mine what was there, but it's maybe my first, just an introduction to a little bit about me and about my story. So I would encourage you, if you really want more, to go check it out and to read about it and to read what was already coming through me. But what I'll say is that the Jesus that I knew was not the Jesus and the Mother, the Spirit, who met me in all of these different points of this difficult childhood that I had. And it wasn't always in times that where I was suffering. It was also in these times of simple things when I was actually really happy. Like I can remember being at my Grammy's. When I was growing up, I was at my Grammy's house a lot. And she had at the top of the steps this really, really ginormous crucifix. We were very Catholic. And in fact, I took that crucifix at one point from her house after she had passed, and I had it like hanging over my mantle in my first apartment. And the reason that I did is because she had it right at the top of these steps that she had, like right at a landing to go to the bedrooms. And I would stop in front of that crucifix and I would make the sign of the cross, and I would just stand there and kind of stare. And I would have these moments of just immense, it was like trance-like, where I was in so much love with this dead man on this cross, and I couldn't understand. So then like the human part of me would be like, why are you standing? And I was like, 10 or something. I would be like, why am I so in love with this dead man? My brain couldn't make sense the crucifixion and the love that I was feeling from it. That was one of maybe that was an early memory. If I were to share all of them with you, I would probably be here on this making this video for the next hour or more. This presence has always been with me. I tell another really profound story in my book about taking a walk with this presence. I didn't know what to call it. I only knew to call it Jesus because his mother was kind of there, but Mary wasn't always again, Catholic, right? We're focused on Jesus. His mother was important, but not as much as him. And it was actually his mother who called me. Anyway, I'll get there in a second. But the bottom line is that I've always had this presence, and this presence has shown up for me in 1,000,001 ways through, again, joyful times like I just described, and really difficult times when my father would be raging and I'd be hiding, and I knew that everything was going to be okay. I knew everything was going to be okay. It is that knowing and the experiences that I had they're some of the greatest gifts of my life. And I thought about this and I was praying about this because it's going to be hard for me to tell many of these stories without there being some type of emotion that just comes up within me because that's what spirit evokes. It's a love that your body almost can barely sustain. And you only want that and more of it. And that's kind of what's happened. What's the most interesting part of my story, I think, is that all of this love that I'm describing to you and these experiences that carried me and all of these things that are ineffable and that I just told you I can't talk about without there stirring some type of deep emotion that generally results in these really, these soothing tears. What I realized is that how insane it is that there was a point in time where all of it went away. And it went away so much so to the point that I was so angry and so lost. And it began with me just being really, really, really sick and tired of what I was hearing, what I was experiencing in the world, and what I was going to church and praying and taking my kids to church and trying to be a good mother and to be a good Catholic and to get to heaven and to do all these things. And all of a sudden, what I was hearing and what I was seeing and what I was experiencing with other people in the church and in the congregation and what I heard from the priests, what I felt going into confession, some of it was really beautiful and other parts of it just really were agitating. I would listen to the homily and I heard the gospel and I would hear the priest and I would be like, we missed it. And all of these people need something else. They didn't need to hear that, right? There was something missing. It was hollow. It was a shell of what was for me. And I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand the feeling, that agitated feeling where I was like, no, but the minute I were to question, it would be like, go back to your box, right? No state. I was kept in this place, right? I had to be. And then so I started to question everything. I questioned everything. And then you start to question and you start to look. And then the more you look, the more you find. And the more you find, the more you're pulled away. Ultimately for me, and so this was a journey over time. Ultimately for me, I found that when the church scandals started to really emerge, there was something within me that I knew I was done. The hypocrisy is beyond my ability to bear, period. And I believe and I know that within the church that there are many, many wonderful priests who are called to truly live a life of service, who truly understand the way, who walk the way, who are in touch, right? And who are there to serve through their faith. And I know they exist and I am so grateful for them. But the hierarchy of the church and these roles that are thrust upon the congregations and the community and the organizations of children being molested and what? This is a faith that talks about, right, that homosexuality is a sin. I mean, what the hell? I just couldn't make it make sense, okay? And so many other things. That's just one that really stands out, but it was the straw that broke the camel's back. And when I realized that I could no longer tolerate this, I let go. I just let go. And I started to say, there's got to be something else. And then, but again, the more that I searched, and the more that I looked for, the more that I found, and the more that I found, the angrier I got, and the more I pulled away. And the more I pulled away, the more I realized that I just felt like, holy shit, I've been duped, completely duped. And I spent 40 years of my life right, doing these things that I was told I needed to do to get to heaven. And oh my God, it was infuriating when all around me, right, I'd look around and you see like terrible, immense suffering, all of the suffering. And I just was like, God, where are you? Where are you? What has happened here? what is happening? I remember asking actually, like, where am I? What the hell? Where am I? Who am I? What is happening? And all of those profound experiences, I questioned. And I think that was probably the hardest part, is I believe that I just made them up. Maybe they were just because I was having a good day. Maybe because I was just young and curious. Maybe they were just coincidence. And so the depth of the doubt that began to seep into my life, and that ultimately took the core of what I thought I knew and dissolved it before my very eyes, of my own knowing of what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad, what's up, what's down. My own righteousness went completely, it just dissolved right before me. And I was left in this void of nothingness. And I was there for a good long while. And all the things, the things that made me, the things that I held on to, the things that I identified with, slowly were brought in front of me and dissolved. Of what I was supposed to do, of who I was supposed to be, of what made me quote unquote successful, of what brought me joy, of what brought me immense purpose, all dissolved. And I was in this void of nothingness and unknowing. What's interesting and what's really fascinating and reflective upon this is that in that place, I never felt scared as much as I felt sad. It wasn't a fear that produced that same fright. It was a fear of like, oh, now what, maybe. But there was this space now. And I had to figure out what to do. I didn't know what to do. And so I did the thing that I know to do, which was to survive. Because I was a survivor. My childhood enabled me to be a survivor. I learned to survive in order I wouldn't be here. And so I just put one foot in front of the other and I said, okay, I'm going to just figure it out. The anger and the sadness and the immense unknowing brought me to a point one afternoon in my room where survival became unbearable, where I didn't want to just survive anymore. I was putting one foot in front of the other for so long that I just grew really tired. And I was so tired that I just said, enough of this. I'm sorry, but sometimes there are words, and you'll hear me say them because it's just what comes up and out. I was just so tired, so that there's a different kind of surrender that happened. And the anger that I now recognize was a very deep felt, unresolved rage that I never dealt with, that I was always masking to avoid. I let it come up and I let it come out. And I said, what the fuck is this? And I called out to the same presence that was with me, that I remember carried me. And I said, you know what? I think this is all a big fucking fluke. And I've had it. And if you are real, then show me, because I don't believe it. And I don't even know what's what, but I'm going to tell you what is that if you're real, then I need to know. And so, again, I wrote about this in this chapter where what happened after that moment, let's say it this way, ask and you shall receive. I was brought to the ground I fell to my knees and I cried. I wept in a way that I can't really describe. It's not something that can be easily articulated, except to say that I cried from a part of me that didn't, it's ineffable. I don't know. I cried and cried and cried and cried. And I cried because what I knew at that point was that I had reached a place within that part of my journey where I was either going to be swept up into something completely new or I was going to continue to fall. It reminds me, this part of the story reminds me, there's, many of you may have seen or been part of the Broadway, or have seen the Broadway show Hamilton. And it's in the song when A Quiet Uptown, when Eliza is describing forgiveness. And she describes it as there's a feeling where it's almost like it's so powerful that it's just easier to swim down. It's when you give up, when you actually contemplate that swimming down is a choice, that something else happens. A grace is given that's too powerful to name. Yeah, that song and that part of that, the part of that song just always, it floored me when I heard it, because I felt like finally I heard words that actually helped to capture a little bit of that experience for me. And what I realized was that I had, for the first time, maybe ever, and at least in this new place for me, I experienced in that moment a kind of grace that I know saved me. It was different. It was a different kind of feeling. It was a different kind of experience than the love that I felt, as I described, from, having those little intimate moments with Jesus on the cross, and the many other experiences that happened to me leading up into this point, where this presence was always there, and I was so privileged to be able to experience it as I did. This was different, and I didn't really know what it was, and I didn't know what was happening, but I knew that all of a sudden everything was going to change. One of the experiences leading up to this point was when I was a teenager. And I had, my teenage years were just as difficult as being a younger child. In fact, maybe more so in many ways. And what I experienced at that time was this voice I heard. And again, you hear not with your ears, it's a knowing, but you say hear, because that's the only way we, as humans, the words that would make sense, was that no matter what happens, everything is going to be okay. And I needed to know that. That's what I was told, that everything would be okay. And you need to know everything's going to be okay. Don't be afraid. And I held on to that with, forever. And I was reminded of that in this moment, because I felt like this was, right, that moment of grace that I'm describing. This was that, right, everything's going to be okay. It's to begin now. And that really began my journey. It began a different kind of journey for me, where I felt within myself, within a different part of myself, a connection and hope, peace, immense peace. In fact, that immense peace feeling is my compass to this day. I make decisions based off of whether I have that immense peace within me when I'm posing to myself a direction that I should walk. If I feel peace, then I know that that's my anchor. And so that was the anchor for me. I believe that grace came from the mother, the great cosmic mother. It came from the Magdalene, who anchors us into the heart, as we'll learn. And more than anything, it came from the Holy Sophia, the Great Spirit, the wisdom of all things, who at that moment, for whatever reason, chose to awaken within me. And I said yes. I remember this moment of saying yes, that this is a knowing that I know and that I believe you. I believe everything is going to be okay. And then from that point forward, I let it lead me. It led me to a number of other very profound experiences, and it was a fantastic journey getting from that moment in, falling to my knees and receiving, having the luxury of receiving this kind of grace that led me to here, right now. And if I were to tell you all of it and tell you the rest of the story, this would be way more than 30-minute video. But I hope that I can share those, I know I will share those stories in this community. And I think that they will probably awaken something within you, because maybe you're experiencing them too. Or part of your story will be reflected in my story. And that's how this works. That's how this works, is our experiences help to make us recognize how united we are, meaning how connected we are, rather. And that our call is actually to allow other people's stories to awaken parts of ourselves. I really look forward to telling those stories. And I will just leave you with this in the next 3 minutes, or 2.5 minutes, is that the grace that I speak of, the peace that I can feel right now, leading me to tell this story as I am. She calls to all of us. She calls to all of you who are watching this, and the path forward is guided. You are held. You are loved. You're in the right place. And there's a great anticipation within me and with this work that I believe has the chops to truly transform how we exist. I have been practicing and taught the way, as I call it, that again has completely transformed my life. And I believe it is my responsibility to share it with you so that it can transform yours. The way of the Magdalene community is where all of those tools and where all of the work, the foundational curriculum, will be shared, and where the work will happen. There'll be opportunities for more in-depth work, etc. But I will always share the tools, always share the messages, always share my own stories there, so that we can all walk this path together. And when you are called for the deeper work, you'll be called. I hope that this gives you a little bit of background, and that you'll show up for more of the other stories that will leave you in wonder and awe, maybe recognition within yourself of the same experiences that you've had or will have, as you answer your own call from within your own self to feel, see, hear, allow the kind of surrender that opens up the parts of you that you've caged, that are waiting and begging to emerge, so that you can see them and know them and acknowledge them and love them and heal them through the alchemy, the force of the Sophia and Yeshua, his mother, and the Magdalene, and reintegrate them for yourself, to learn to heal yourself, so that you too can someday tell your story, which will hopefully bring more people to this path that maybe you can teach the way. I look forward to meeting you, to hearing your story, and to having you join our community. Please go to the website. The wait list is currently still up and running. It will be running through the end of the year. The founders rate for joining the Way of the Magdalene community will continue through March. After March, it's going to change. The monies that will be donated to the community through membership will serve the community. I have a big vision for what we will do and what we'll experience and who we'll have showing up for us and within the community, but also to serve us and to serve each other, and certainly to go out into the world to transform it. We transform it by transforming ourselves. I hope you'll join me. Thanks so much.